What is up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerdcastle for the first episode in our coverage of Darkest Dungeon. My name is Splattercat. Very happy to have you here today as we hang out for a little while and check out a game that is near and dear to my heart, although I definitely have a love-hate relationship with this game. This game makes me so sad, but it also makes me so glad to be into indie gaming. Darkest Dungeon released earlier this week in its 1.0 iteration. I would feel remiss if I didn't at least nod at the game as it went by. I didn't really have time to record a full series, but I had a little bit of extra time today, and I wanted the game to have a place on the channel. Very much the same rationale that I had towards Dragon's Dogma, where I'd like to have something on the channel covering it because I think Darkest Dungeon was an early access game done right. The 1.0 iteration of this game is by far the most refined that I've seen, and I think I've got 10 or 15 hours played. And I very much like what I've seen so far from the 1.0 version compared to some of the previous alphas. And I wanted it to be on the channel, I really did. So in my free time here, we're just going to record some episodes, have a good time, hang out with Reynald and Dismas and all of our old friends, and hopefully it'll be a really, really good time. We're going to go campaign mode here. And actually, I was doing a test recording, got messed up. So I'm just going to go with the same name right here. We're going to go with Nasty. It's the Nasty Estate, and that's going to be a throwback to all Crash Nasty, Smash Nasty, Flash Nasty, all of our dear friends from the Ark series. And honestly, I've been using those names since MMO days. I used to run a guild called the Nasty Crew, and everybody in the guild had to have a name like that. And I already had like 50 of them generated like that, and so it's just a bunch of gnomes running around just generally trolling and acting rowdy. We're going to play the game. There's going to be some cinematics we have to sit through, so it's nasty time, right?
You will arrive along the old road. It winds with a troubling, serpent-like suggestion through the corrupted countryside, leading only, I fear, to ever more tenebrous places. There is a sickness in the ancient pitted cobbles of the old road, and on its writhing path you will face viciousness, violence, and perhaps other damnably transcendent terrors. So steel yourself, and remember there can be no bravery without madness. The old road will take you to hell, but in that gaping abyss, we will find our redemption.
Alrighty, welcome to the Nasty Hamlet. If you remember this, or if you've been a fan of the game, you will recall you always start out with Reynald and Dismas. And Dismas always ends up being one of my best characters. I don't know what it is about Dismas, but I swear to God, he survives every campaign for me. Of all the characters that I lose, Dismas is always that one guy just clinging to the side of survival, refusing to fall. There's our cart in the background. We're apparently lost in a forest that's made out of gravestones. A little bit unfortunate.
Have run up these lanes. Keep to the side path. The hamlet is just ahead.
It's a rough neighborhood. We definitely dropped in the forest hood. It's a little gnarly. I did turn on subtitles because I figured
this thug in brutal fashion, that all may hear of your arrival.
So combat in this game is exactly what you would expect from any classic RPG of the SNES genre. Everybody has a turn, you hit each other. So the basic way that it works is you've got a speed roll. You roll a d6 basically, and it adds your speed score to that. And the order is from greatest to the least, and so it looks like Dismas rolled first. He's gonna stab the hell out of this brigand cutthroat. That would suck, only being good at cutting one thing. Like if I was gonna be a brigand, that's a big knife right there. That's almost a sword, honestly. Almost a short sword, but if you're gonna have a big knife like that, you figure he'd be better at cutting other things other than throw. I mean, maybe a little bit of stabbing in there too. Dismas is going to attack. That's going to apply a bleed to him. Unfortunately, the damage is not going to be enough to lay him low, so he's going to come back. And, oh, we got a big dodge from Reynald. Luck appears to be on our side. Hopefully, Reynald will smite this evildoer using Smite. It's called Smite, so there it is. It's all thematic, and it worked perfectly. The enemy definitely crumbled. Well, he didn't crumble. It was more of like a blood explosion. But I get what you're going towards there. We got a little bit of food. We can use that to heal if we want. I'm not sure how much explanation with this game I should give because we've played it before. If you haven't seen my previous series, it might be worth watching. I don't know. It was kind of it's an antiquated version.
There is much to be found in forgotten places.
The problem with it is that it's an antiquated version of the game, because I think that the game is far, far superior now than it was back then. Little things you need to be aware of, though, is something like your torch meter right here. The lower the light level, the more treasure you get, but the worse the monsters and the fights are. So it's one of those little balancing mechanisms where if you wanted to play in hard mode, you could just ignore torches all the time, but you will pay the cost eventually in RNG and spilled blood. Other things to be aware of, abilities our characters can use right there, HP, and their sanity meter, which are these little pips underneath their feet. When those get to here, they either have a nervous breakdown, or B, they find heroism inside of themselves and they're like, oh! And you get like this big angelic cry, and then they buff the rest of your party by becoming this paragon of virtue in the darkness. And then they've added a new thing now where it fills up twice, so you have 200 stress. I think this was a good change, because before, when you maxed out your stress, it happened pretty frequently. Maxing out your stress now means that they just die of a heart attack. That's it. They instantaneously die of a heart attack because it's too much stress for them to take. I've never lost anybody to a heart attack yet, and I've played a pretty big chunk of the game. As long as you play it careful and you have smart group builds, you should be alright. But it's nice to know that the upper threshold has something punishing waiting for us, I think. Let's go to the next map. Traveling through a sewer hole.
These vermin are message. The rightful owner has returned, and their kind is no longer welcome.
That's just like your opinion, man. We brigands don't believe in ownership, okay? I'm gonna shoot that guy. He's got 3 attacks here. He's got a stab that makes people bleed. He's got a shot that can go to the back rows and does a lot of damage and crits all the time. I think he's got a buff, which is a bullet that he fires that also buffs his stats. And then he's got an AoE. Now, this guy's a big model, which means he's gonna block anything in the back row. That's gonna cause a little bit of a problem for our dear friend Reynald here, who has Smite, which is just a single target attack that gets bonus damage versus unholy enemies. Zealous Accusation, which is one of my favorite abilities in the entire game. It is really, really, really good. It says it's got a minus 40% damage mod, but I feel like it always hits really, really hard. Crits a lot, too. I don't know if it's just perception for me, but this ability is always reliable. Stunning Blow does exactly what it says on the box. You clip them with the hilt of your sword, knock them the hell on out. They get all dizzy, and they go whoop, 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 choo, 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 choo. In true Glass Joe style, we got Bulwark of Faith. Protection is basically a defensive stat. It makes it so he takes 25% less damage, and it also buffs our torch radius. You can, I think, stack this multiple turns and get him to the point where he's got like 75% resist for a turn or two. Probably not worth it, though. I don't run that ability very often. It's situationally useful. He's going to hit us with Rain of Whips. Raindrops keep falling on my head. But that doesn't mean I won't shoot your Fusilier till he's dead. Oh man, he's not dead? Oh, blanket fire. My particular brand, I'm going to try not to recycle jokes. I remember some of the jokes I made the last time I did this series. For example, blanket fire, he's just lighting your blankets on fire in your BS. He spits hot fire in the sheets. Anyways, he should have died. I should have killed him right there. And once he was good and killed... Oh, see, that's what it looks like when you take stress. In case you were wondering where those little stressors are at. I'm going to shoot him again, and hopefully he doesn't dodge.
Broken. Maintain the offensive.
They've changed the game now. This was kind of a... Oh, that's not good. Point blank... Oh, good, he resisted. So point blank shot does a ton of damage. That in and of itself sucks, but point blank shot also pushes you back in your line. And if you look at the little dots on there, the little yellow dots, that's the position and formation that they can use those abilities from. This guy is almost exclusively useful in the front lines. He gets an ability later on called Holy Lance that lets him attack from the back lines and move back up to the front. But, ooh, 9 damage right there. Reynald's got a little bit of hatred in his heart right now, I think. He's getting in there. He's causing problems for the enemy.
A victory. Perhaps the turning point.
Oh, wow. We did pretty good right there. That was like a really, really good tutorial. Yes, and you can die in the tutorial, by the way. It's happened to me. Sometimes you get really bad RNG and you just die in the tutorial. It is what it is. I think they supply you with new guys if that happens. I think this chest is habitually... Yeah, this one is habitually trapped to teach you a lesson about opening treasure without reading the name of the treasure. That bandit was sitting on a trap, trying to get his racks. Out there getting stacks. We got a caution cloak. Normally you don't get loot in the tutorial. That would give him better scout chance. Scouting happens when you're on the little map right here. Whenever you finish a room, you get a scout chance. If you succeed, it does like this little droplet AoE type deal that'll show you what's in the next couple rooms. It can be really, really, really useful for planning out your journeys and minimizing your losses. Having at least one person in the party at all times with a decent scout chance, A smart idea. An idea that you more than likely will not regret, especially as you get into the longer dungeons that are more complicated, like the medium and the long dungeons that just go and go and go, and you've got multiple paths to get around. It will become more useful. By clicking on that thing right there, you get to end the area. We got 5,000 gold. We also made another 1,300. We got 2 G-dubs. My George Washington's down here. I guess I call them Jeffersons this time around. We got 2 Jeffersons. I like that better anyways. Thomas Jefferson, underrated. Well, maybe not underrated, but definitely, I think, important. So we're going to call him the T-Jeffs for right now. He got some new stuff. So they both leveled up to 1. Every time you complete a dungeon, you're going to get XP. Even when you lose, you get XP. So sometimes losing can be formative as well. I think you get 1 XP for failing. You get 2 for winning in a short mission. I think you get like 4 or 5 for winning a medium mission. He got Early Riser, which means that he gets +2 to his speed score if our torch is above 75. He developed deviant tastes, though, which means that he's not allowed to go to the brothel in order to blow off steam after missions. So apparently he's been cutting on the hookers a little bit too much, and so the big pimp daddy of the neighborhood decided, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, it's the caretaker. He walks down the street with a limp, just waka-chick, 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 waka-chick. He's got his business covered. It's not a savory business, but very little in this hamlet is savory, so...
Welcome home, such as it is. This squalid hamlet, these corrupted lands, they are yours now, and you are bound to them.
You know, the subtitles are kind of large. I think I might disable them. I don't know. They're kind of in the way. It's making me sad. There we go. Sorry, guys. They are really, really big subtitles, and I'm not feeling them. Feel free to riot and, like, throw a shit fit and, like, set YouTube on fire if you don't like that decision. And I'll go back on it. So we got a couple of locations we can visit for right now. We've got the graveyard. That's where dead guys go. We've got our ancestors' memoirs, which is actually a new thing. It lets you watch all the cinematics that you've seen so far. In addition, there's now these journal pages that you find down in the dungeon that give you backstory. They were written by the Patreon backers or the Kickstarter backers or something like that. And so the development team took the best ones from the Kickstarter backer, the one that fit the theme the most, and they implemented them into the game. I'm not adverse to it. Initially, I don't like Kickstarter stuff like that breaks immersion. I've seen it, like, for example, when we played Pillars of Eternity or whatever, Pillars of whatever.
And outlaws, fools, and corpses.
What abilities does she have? So we got, I think she might always have, no she doesn't. She doesn't always have the same abilities. I wish she had this ability. I think they nerfed it recently, but still, this is a really, really good ability. I love Judgment. Judgment is like my Spam-A-Lot ability. So we've got Dazzling Light, that's still pretty good. It causes a stun and raise your torch. We got a little heal, we got an AoE heal. We've got Illumination, which is not so terrible either. It's not my favorite ability set, and we can't actually upgrade them for right now. You always get the same people. Fitzherbert.
A sister of battle, pious and unrelenting.
And then we got Fuji.
Better laboratory than the blood-soaked battlefield.
I used to dislike the Plague Doctor, so let's go through here and we'll talk about it. We got ourselves a Vestal. She's obviously a sister of Sigmar. That's what she's supposed to look like anyways. Everything in this game is a reference. He's the guy from Dark Souls. This guy, I think, is a Defias bandit from World of Warcraft. I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be a sister of Sigmar, and then she's just a Plague Doctor, I guess. I don't know. Just a generic Plague Doctor. Still, a lot of the classes in this game seem to be either vague references to other games, or at least inspired, I guess with regards to the aesthetic, by other things. She's got Guilty Conscience. Bears the crushing guilt of deeds real and imagined. I think that one means that when she walks past a confessional, she has to stop at it, I think. Pretty sure that's what that one means. There's little nodes and stuff inside the dungeons that all these random quirks and whatnot that you have on your characters, they will cause them to behave in different ways while they're inside the dungeon. Fuji, what you got going on? Fuji has Plague Grenade. Really, really pleased with the Plague Doctor. The Plague Doctor has been one of those characters that in the initial release of this game, the Plague Doctor was just awful. Just an all-around bad character. But they've buffed the hell out of her now, and she's one of my main all-stars. I run a Plague Doctor as frequently as I can, because once you buff up some of their abilities, they have amazing synergy with some other classes. And if you just put them in any group, they bring something. The plague damage that they do is, quite frankly, terrifying. Now that they've buffed it, it used to be like 1 damage per round, which made them almost useless. Now it's way, way, way more damage, to the point where you're like, woo, when you get hit by plague damage, you gotta watch out, it'll sneak up on you. My suggestion at the beginning of the game, they'll give you a loose configuration of materials to craft. You've got busts, you've got portraits, you've got deeds, and you've got crests. My suggestion would be to increase this so that you have 4 heroes.
Seeking fortune and glory in this domain of the damned.
Yes, yes, edgy narrator. I get it, you're edgy still. I usually use the Stagecoach Network because you never know when you're going to need more heroes, and having like 4 to 5 heroes a day that you can just grab and put in, and it's fire and forget. That's the thing, is you can fire any of the guys that you hire after you get done with them. Like if it turns out that they cost too much money to fix their psychoses or whatever, you can just send them packing, send them on down the road. And it's nice to have throwaway characters every now and again to support the people that are leveling. So let's say that next mission, these 2 take a whole bunch of stress damage, but these 2 are pretty fine. We could get 2 throwaway guys of the same class or of different classes just to take them through the dungeon again so they get a little more XP. And then afterwards, if we don't like the way our frontline guys made it through the dungeon, we can just chuck them at the end. We can buck them and chuck them, doesn't even matter.
A mecca of madness and morbidity. Your work begins.
I like mechas. Mechas are super awesome. I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles X right now. And for real, I want a skill. I don't think my life is going to be complete until I have a skill. So our first mission, we don't have a choice. We have to go into the ruins, which is actually my favorite dungeon anyways. It'll give us 3,000 gold on success, 4 crests, and then we'll get a stun charm, which gives you stun resist. I'll probably end up just vendoring that, but it's not a terrible piece of equipment. Let's go ahead and create our lines here. This should be called the Red Hook. Different configurations have different names. I think I've found 5 or 6 of them. They don't actually do anything. I don't really think they do anything. I don't know if it's like, there was an X-Men game for a while that was kind of like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, but with the X-Men. And if you had certain configurations of guys, it would give you stat boosts and stuff like that. And I always really, really liked that mechanic because it inspired you to take characters you might have otherwise ignored. I don't know if these comes with any kind of boost or if it's just, you know, like labeling or something. Either way, doesn't really matter. Let's get to provisioning.
The cost of preparedness, measured now in gold, later in blood.
So while we're here, the caretaker seems to have a pretty tidy business running. He seems to have his finger in a lot of different pies around here. He's going to sell us food, shovels. These all do different things inside the dungeon. I'm not going to explain them right now. As we come across things and as we play the game, though, I think we'll probably talk about them all in passing. I'm going to take like 6 torches. Each of these costs money, so you don't want to over-provision because it can screw you. I'll probably bring 12 food just to be careful. This is a short mission. We don't need 12 food. We could get by with 8, but I'm going to bring it just in case. I always bring 2 shovels because every time I don't, I regret it. And now they've actually got a pretty cool mechanic where if you have certain people in your party, they bring their own supplies, so that'll save us a little bit of money too. I think we've got just about everything that I want. Yeah. An extra key might be a smart idea. But other than that, I tend to be kind of wasteful when I provision because preparedness is all in my mind. I always find that when I don't prepare properly, I really, really kick myself for it. It's pretty deeply upsetting. So welcome to the dungeon. Actually, this is pretty... Welcome to the dungeon! It gets deeper and so dark! Alright, so we've got kind of an interesting configuration of rooms. I will more than likely just kind of ignore this one, and we'll just do a straight path around like so, unless one of our scouting checks finds that there's something in that room that I really, really want. Let's get to walking. These boots were made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. I'll shove this boot up your ass and cover that toe cap with your poo. Alright. Oh, you can press the T key to add torches. Try to keep the light level high on some of your earlier missions. I mean, oh good, we got surprised. That means they get the first turn, I think. Oh, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Before, I thought so maybe it just gives you a speed debuff now, but normally when you're surprised, I thought it meant the other side got a free turn, and it also rearranges your lines, which can be pretty inconvenient. It can be a little bit upsetting still. Looks like we didn't really receive that punishment, so, whatever. I'm going to have her, actually, let's do Disorienting Blast. That'll get rid of the corpses. Poof. Let me talk my way through my abilities here because I don't want to move too quickly. I'm a little bit spoiled right now because I've been playing the game on stream, so I always assume that everybody knows what we have and what we don't have. We have Fitzherbert, we have Dazzling Light. It's her basic attack for right now. Adds a little bit of torch and stuns. It can be a very useful ability if you don't have any healing to do. AoE heal, single target heal, and then we've got Illumination, which is basically the same thing as this attack, but It lowers your opponent's dodge, it looks like. So if you're up against like war dogs or anything like that, enemies that are very, very dodgy and they're all over the place, you probably want to use that on them once or twice if you're trying to land a couple of hits. First fight goes without any real issue or consideration.
These nightmarish creatures can be felled. They can be beaten.
And felled they were. Felled the hell out of them, and it's just as well. Let's go ahead and take some treasures. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this individual. So his quirks, he has Kleptomaniac. He always has this. Gives him a random chance to steal treasure every time you open a box. He can only pray for stress relief in town. He's got God-fearing. These are by and large the same every single time, so just keep that in mind. These, however, I think are different. I don't know. The original cast might have the same things every time. I can't remember. It's not inside my metagame knowledge. I know for a fact that Reynald and Dismas always have the same shit. We got a shovel, and this is exactly what it's for. Somebody decided to build a wall out of corpses. I guess he ran out of graves. You got to put them somewhere. A little bit of the old Spartan strategy, I guess. There will be booby traps. Ooh, we're surprised again. Man, RNG is not loving us today, is it? RNG is not loving us. It's okay, though, because I don't love RNG either. Let's go ahead and poison her up with our Blight Bomb. That'll at least get a little bit of damage off on her. She is a character that you always want to focus fire first. She runs Stressful Incantation, which does a crazy amount of stress. And then B, she can also rearrange your line by pushing and pulling people, which gets really, really, really irritating after about like 5 seconds. So my suggestion would be to deal with her first whenever you get the opportunity to do so. Bump in the night. Unfortunately, we are taking a little bit of damage here. We got Divine Comfort. I'm going to run Illumination on her. I should probably use this time to move my lines around, but honestly, we're doing okay right now. Just because we took one nasty stress hit doesn't mean I'm about to bail out and quit. Keep trying to snipe that back line to get rid of her because she's got to go. We don't really have any attacks that go to the front line right now, which is a bit unfortunate. However, what we do have is Battlefield Medicine, which is just like a little baby heal. The most important part about Battlefield Medicine is that it gets rid of debuffs. I'm sorry, it'll get rid of bleeding, and it'll get rid of blight as well, I think. And so it can be really, really, really useful to have if you run a Plague Doctor in conjunction with like an Occultist.
Horrors, brought low and driven into the mud.
Well, did you ever think that might be why they became horrors? Is because someone brought them low and dragged them through the mud? It's not a very inspiring thing to be drugged through mud, unless you're like really, really, really into mud. But I'd like to think most people are not into mud. It's not a texture that anyone really enjoys when it's been out in the sun for a little while, but it's still gushy. It gets that weird farty smell that I associate with mosquitoes. I don't know. Please don't steal that. Good, he didn't steal it. We got a bloody... ooh. Well, no, that's pretty terrible. I guess if you're making so, you can run a Plague Doctor as a melee. I personally wouldn't recommend it. I'll probably end up selling that one right there. There's two different sets of gear for the Plague Doctor. There's a melee set and there's a range set. I much prefer the range set because I tend to run my Plague Doctor in the 4th or the 3rd slot. Running a Plague Doctor, they get an ability called Incision that I think she can run from the 3rd slot that is okay. It's about as good as Dismas's Open Vein. So there are options in the game. There's a lot of different ways to build a character, and there's a lot of different ways to run your guys. They are now surprised. Because we have a full light radius, we get a fat bonus to us surprising our enemies. I don't know if I want to go with the AoE. I'm going to go with a shot to the back line. Shot to the heart, one step away from you. This game is the most metal thing on earth, by the way. I brought this up in stream, and I'm pretty sure this game is the basis for like 90% of really, really like fantasy European heavy metal groups. Like bands like, oh, I don't know, Darkmoor, stuff like that, Rhapsody. Didn't they have to change their name? Aren't they Rhapsody of Fire or something now? Or were they Rhapsody of Fire first and they had to change their name to Rhapsody? It was something like that. It was the Graveyard Slash. It was the Slash. It was a monster splash. It did the slash. We've already gotten rid of the really, really dangerous enemy. Oh, shit. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. Big crit right there. Not going to matter. It's okay. Because what we're going to do is we're going to run Battlefield Medicine right there. That bleed is no mo. And then we're going to run a big old heal right there. Yeah, that should keep us moving. 5 and a 6 right there. Not bad. Not bad at all. Some people don't like it that I use that ability. I've heard a couple complaints in stream. But I think it's a good ability. So therefore, I'm going to use it. This might be a situation where you would want to run that because you'll get the kill there and you'll still be able to put some damage on him. Finally, I would recommend not moving things around just yet. I'm going to run an AoE right there. And she doesn't really have much else that she can do. Indeed, the Plague Doctor is a she. So I'm just going to disintegrate some corpses. If you pass a turn in this game, it's not a good thing. They get a bunch of stress for passing turns. They don't like that at all. So don't pass turns if you can help it. Make sure you're always doing something, even if it's useless. This right here, you'll notice that when we interact with stuff in the background, things light up. That's because you can use any one of these items in this central slot to have a secondary effect. This one we want to use a key, and it'll give us a hidden compartment, which means we'll get better treasure this time around, which had a key inside of it. I don't think I would store my key inside of the locked chest. Hopefully that's not the key that goes to the chest. That's a scout check right there, in case you were wondering. And so it'll tell us what's waiting for us here, there, and everywhere. It also tells you where traps are, which is really, really nice. On every character, they've got a trap skill. If you right-click on your characters, you can open their character sheet in the middle of combat. Down here in the bottom right, that's their skill at opening up traps. Different classes are better or worse at it. And there's also some classes that you wouldn't think would be very good at disarming traps who actually are. So anyways, you should always use your trap guide to try and click on traps. If you've got a 50%, it's way better than a 20%. And sometimes you get, why is she getting so much stress right now? I think stress starts to build once it gets past like a certain once it precipitates past like a certain point, they start to just get it naturally as you're walking through. Please don't steal that pack. We need all the treasure we can get in the early game. Oh, well, looky there. We got some freebie FUD. I like FUD. Let's go ahead and throw that on one of our characters. 6 health applied. And if we can keep on hoofing it, this will happen on occasion. This is why you bring food. The exertions of adventuring produce a growing hunger amongst the party. You gotta feed them. You have no choice. If you don't do that, you get a bunch of stress, and I think you lose a bunch of health. It's a little bit lame, losing health to not eating, but it's logical. You gotta eat that food. Eating is one of my favorite things in life in general. I know you're waiting for some big proclamation right there, but I figure go big or go home. I love eating. Food is the best. It is one of the best things about being a human being. Oh, good. At least we'll get to use another key. I was feeling kind of shitty about... let's go for... I'm going to be offensive on this one. I was going to go for a backline stun, which is probably the smarter move. But I'm kind of feeling like playing balls to the wall right now, so that's what I'm going to do. A big hit on that third character. Then he died from the blight. Perfectly executed and exactly what I was going for. There's a little bit of RNG in there, so you never know if you're going to get out what you put in. But that was... I'd admit it if that was an accident. That was what I was going for, though. Let's keep the AoEs up and flowing. Keep that health nice and filled. To the front lines. I'm going to start whittling away at this amigo right here. He should go down on the next turn. Hopefully Dismas will have a little something for him. Graveyard Slash is back out with the 6 damage. That's a bigger hit that I was not really lined up to handle. We got a corpse right there that's in the way. Not going to matter all that much. Which has the better damage? Minus 50, minus 75. I didn't get him. Didn't get him. I don't even know if that could have gotten him. I probably should have taken a look at his HP before I fired it off. It's alright, though, because he's going to die right there. And then we'll be left with just our dear little tiny friend who will be immolated by our righteous rhymes, which he writes down on the paper. That's the end of the dungeon. Let's get some more treasure. And all in all, for a first run, not that bad. Go ahead and drop the holy water. If you wanted to drop your items, you can do that by shift-clicking. It tells you that when you mouse over them, I think. Maybe not when that's open. Oh, maybe not at all. I know it tells you at some point that if you shift-click things, it'll drop them out of your inventory. But that's it. Hooray for us. We win. We do get reimbursed a little bit of money for the stuff that we buy. I think we get like a 50% restocking fee or something like that. But you do get the cash back, which means in the original version of the game that they released, you always tried to like lowball it when it came to supplies because you didn't get anything back. This one you can actually be fairly liberal with your expenditures if you wanted to. They've all hit level 1, which is nice to know. Mediator, Mankind Hater, and Diurnal. Diurnal. Okay. Meditator makes it so that improves stress reduction while meditating. Okay. Mankind Hater gives her 15% damage versus human and less stress damage when struck by humans, so that'll be nice. Back in town, I have just enough time to let you know that we're out of time for the day. Little unfortunate, but I'll see you on the next episode of Darkest Dungeon. No idea. I'll probably cut like 5 episodes. I think that seems about right. Maybe we'll see. I'll see y'all later. Hi to everybody.